watching Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson. It is the month of November, and that means Financial Literacy Month. This year marks the 14th annual Financial Literacy Month here in Canada, and this year's theme is Money on Your Mind, Talk About It. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Joining me to talk about money, of course, is Carolyn Goodwyn, CPA and Senior Manager of Operations and Social Impact at CPA Canada. Carolyn, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Shannon, thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm always glad for the opportunity to discuss financial literacy. As you mentioned, I am a CPA. I do work for the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, and our mission is to deliver that financial literacy education that empowers Canadians to better their financial wellness. So thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Well, you're definitely going to be the expert to talk to about all of these issues. So I appreciate you being here. So as I mentioned, it is Financial Literacy Month, and we're going to start with just an obvious question. Carolyn, why is financial literacy so important?
I feel financial literacy is so important because we know that every aspect and every decade of our lives, we are wrapped with financial constraints. Let's face it, without money, we can do very little. We know from so many studies year after year, and even discussing with you, Shannon, on another episode, that one way to improve our financial well-being is to educate ourselves. But we need to do the work. And where do individuals start? We ask ourselves. But as I mentioned at the opening, I do work at CPA Canada. Our mission is to provide financial beginnings of financial literacy and those topics that Canadians can learn from, and the right advice and start saving every dollar to improve their financial situation is what we want to share today.
I completely agree with you with the purpose of why financial literacy is really so important for families. And before we sort of get into our discussion, I just want to give our viewers just a little bit of background about Financial Literacy Month. It was actually first launched back in 2011, and the goal is to raise awareness around financial knowledge and know-how, because the more you know and understand, the better equipped you are when it comes to making decisions around your financial health and your well-being. Now, improving the financial skills of Canadians is a key focus of the federal government and was the reason behind its national strategy for financial literacy, Count Me in Canada, and that was launched back in 2015. Improving the financial literacy skills of Canadians continues to be a key focus today. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada updated the national strategy back in 2021 by creating an updated 6-year strategy called Make Change That Counts. And the visions or goals of this latest strategy are to have a Canada where everyone can build financial resilience in an increasingly digital world, where individuals and families are able to respond and adapt well to life's financial changes, uncertainties, and vulnerabilities, and where all Canadians benefit from an accessible, inclusive, and effective financial ecosystem. Now, based on these goals, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Carolyn, because we're now halfway through this latest sort of 6-year strategy from FCAC. How do you feel Canadians are doing with their financial literacy?
In general, I actually think a lot of people are struggling. We are starting to see small incremental improvements in educating themselves. You know, you mentioned the digital, there's education everywhere if we have time to sit back and read it. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that Canadians are getting themselves out of debt and turning that needle. And when it comes to financial literacy, they're just not educating themselves enough. They're not realizing the impact of their financial uneducation, for lack of a better word, and are not helping themselves get out of debt, turning their situation around. This is not only just impacting them, but it's impacting the next generation that are watching them, how they're managing their money, whether you're a parent or a grandparent. Our influence is huge. And most financial knowledge comes from influencers, which is generally family.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the people that we get our advice from, or the people that we do talk to when we talk about it, those are the people that are having the most influence on our decisions. And so I agree with you. There's room for improvement, I think, for Canadians to improve their financial literacy. Surveys show that since the pandemic, our financial confidence has actually decreased, unfortunately. For example, there were some international surveys previously that showed Canadians had some of the highest literacy levels in the world. Back in 2017, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development ranked Canada third in financial literacy. We are not third anymore, unfortunately. There's figures from Statistics Canada that do reflect this. Back in 2018, which is only 6 years ago, 61% of Canadians did feel confident about their financial literacy. 6 years later, now in 2024, less than half of the population, only 46%, feel confident. So, Carolyn, I think this reiterates, I think, what your opinion is. There has been a decline in our financial literacy.
And why do I think that there's a decline? I honestly think that TikTok and finfluencers are maybe not really giving people the education that they need. I don't want to call out a social platform, but let's face it, a lot of people are on social media. They're making fun of money. We've all heard the girl math, which, to be honest, is a swear word in our department at CPA Canada, because it's really a thing. Social media can be great for education, but it can also be terrible. And I think when it comes to money, we have to be super careful what we're watching and reading that can influence us in our financial literacy, which is why at CPA Canada, we really promote our unbiased educational materials that steer you in the right direction so that you can get your money questions answered correctly.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially when it comes to social media, because we're here in Canada, most of our social media influence is going to be coming from likely the United States. And there can be a significant difference in how money is managed between our two countries because we have different banking systems, we have different investment systems. All of that is challenging. So I agree with you that we need to get our advice from those people that actually have the knowledge. There was a recent survey by Edward Jones that said the vast majority of Canadians, about 84%, believe that learning about money in school would have helped them better manage their personal finances and, of course, give them less stress. Only 46% of those that were surveyed say that they had enough knowledge after they graduated high school in order to manage their personal finances. And that's a very small amount. That's less than half of students. Now, worse than that, unfortunately, Canadians between the ages of 18 to 34 are the least prepared to manage their finances. Is that surprising to you?
Yeah, not only surprising, but also very concerning. We can't rely on just the educational system to provide us with financial literacy. It's just one piece of learning. As a parent and now as a grandparent, I'm a firm believer it's actually never too early to start educating your family about finances. I have so much joy taking my 2-year-old grandson to the grocery store, and we talk about what we're going to buy. We talk about what's on sale. And for the most part, he has no idea, but the words are being shared, the concepts are being forged. And something really funny happened on his second birthday. I got a glimpse of what that impact was on him. We went into the Mastermind store. I told him he could pick out a toy. He walked up and down the aisle and handed me a fire truck and said, "Nana, I would like a fire truck. You pay for it?" He knew that he couldn't just have it. We had to do a transaction first. So education is an all-round thing. It's in school, it's at work, it's with your grandparents, it's with your parents.
Well, and perhaps some of the good news is, at least here in Ontario, our school system is responding to this need. And so financial literacy is starting to become more prevalent in the curriculum here in Ontario. And they've also put in place that Ontario students will be required to pass a financial literacy test in order to get their high school diploma. So I think that is a move in the positive direction. Can you talk a little bit about, you sort of touched on it with our little ones, about the value and importance of that financial education in our school systems?
Yeah, financial literacy, I'm so happy to hear what the educational system is doing here in Ontario. It's not a one and done subject. We actually need to talk about it every day. And the reality is the choices or sacrifices we need to make in order to afford the most important things we need, food and shelter, for example, needs and wants have to be the toughest concept to instill in not only ourselves, but in children in the education system. At CPA Canada, we actually see that is one of our most popular sessions amongst teachers, is the needs and wants.
That's really interesting, because you're right. That differentiating between those two categories is really critical. And children, I think, at younger ages can grasp that, I think, at a fairly early stage. And then maybe moving into older education years, talking about using credit, what's an interest rate mean? All of those things I think the high school students would benefit from as well. So I agree that having that as part of our education system is going to be a real benefit, I think, for our future generations. And I do hope that it improves as we go through the next few years. Now, the theme, of course, for financial literacy this month is money on your mind, talk about it. Why is it so hard to talk about money?
It's so personal, right? Many of us grow up not talking about money, nor do we even have the examples from our parents on how to do that. So there's a lot of vulnerability around finances, shame. Maybe you made a bad investment. Maybe you spent all your money and you were supposed to save it. And then there's fear to then talk about it. And I think that's one thing that we just need to start to overcome.
And I think that sort of lack of education too, it does make us feel vulnerable. We feel that if we have in our personal perception that we have mismanaged our money in some way, that we have done something bad. We are a bad person, we've done this wrong, and it's absolutely, you don't want to talk about it with other people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to sort of get past that and maybe set the example. Maybe it's us that starts the conversation who feel more comfortable talking about money. It's our jobs. This is what we do every day. And start the conversation, even if it's around being positive, saying, okay, you might be in debt today, but how can we help you turn that around? Because it is possible to do it.
I had a positive experience with somebody that came in to see me not too long ago, where I was able to help her to see where she could arrange the budget where she would be able to manage the debt. And that made her feel so much more empowered, leaving my office. And that made my job so much more easy in order to be able to support her in those types of resources that are available. And so, of course, we're talking about money matters today, and that's a good thing, because research does show that talking about money builds financial confidence and can lead to better financial outcomes. Now, also, as part of the national campaign for Financial Literacy Month, the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada is calling on Canadians to commit to doing some things to boost their financial knowledge. And we're going to talk about those suggestions, and Carolyn's going to share her advice when Money Matters returns after the break.
You're watching an interesting local show on Rogers TV and you want to know more. That's when you head to rogerstv.com. Our website provides more information about our programs, our hosts, our schedule, and about how you too can get involved with Rogers TV. Visit us online at rogerstv.com.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You could end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a hearse. These unplanned modes of transportation can be a costly choice and do not take you home. Your plan could include a designated driver, a taxi, or public transit. Drink responsibly, choose your ride, and have a plan for a safe ride home.
Visit arrivealive.org to find out more.
With Rogers TV, you can cheer on the home team from the comfort of your living room. We'll head to the rink, the field, the court, or the pitch, so you don't have to. Tune in and cheer on your local amateur athletes on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson. My guest today is Carolyn Goodwyn, CPA and Senior Manager of Operations and Social Impact at CPA Canada. And it is November, and that means Financial Literacy Month here in Canada. The theme this year is Money on Your Mind, Talk About It. As part of their national campaign for Financial Literacy Month, the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada is calling on Canadians to talk more about money matters and to commit to doing one thing to boost their financial confidence. Among their suggestions are taking the pulse of your financial health, reviewing your household budget, checking your credit report and your credit score, and asking questions to a trusted financial professional. So, Carolyn, can you just talk about the benefits of doing one or all of these activities this month?
Absolutely. For example, one of the things was taking the pulse of your financial health. I think if you ask the average person, they don't even know what that really means. It's like, where is all of my money? Especially if you're married and you might not know everything that your husband is doing or your wife is doing. It's just really having an understanding of where are all our bank accounts? Where are all of our debts? How much credit card debt do we really have? Are we hiding it from each other? Because let's be honest, sometimes that happens. And then reviewing that household budget and looking at what are our committed expenses. Our burn rate, for example, how much is rent? How much is food? How much do we have in subscriptions, gas, heat, insurance, all those things. Understanding what our absolute costs are every month is a really great starting point, regardless of how much money is coming in. And then let's say we have to borrow, sometimes checking your credit score, understanding what is that number and learning how to improve that number. And then if you're not sure, start building those relationships with your trusted financial advisor.
Going back to the budget part, I agree. It's so important to have that sit down with spouse, family to get those things in place, learn what each other is doing so that you're working together as a team. And having that initial sit down can be challenging. And it takes homework. And so I think sometimes it's maybe a change of mindset to say, look, we want to together to make this a goal for our family. We want to be more in control of our finances. So let's sit down. Let's look at our bank accounts, like you say. Let's look at any investments we have. What banks are they with? I think you're absolutely right that there can be some mystery, I think, within our families. Would you agree?
Yes. And not only that, I think the first step that people need to do is say, when we talk about shame and guilt, is let's not make any changes. Let's just take an inventory of what we have. This isn't about, oh, you spend this, I spend that, oh, your credit card bill is bigger than mine. Let's just say, here's what reality is. And let's start with the truth. Here's what we have, and here's what we don't have. And then we can turn into that next stage, which is maybe we need to make some sacrifices. Maybe you cancel your subscription at Netflix and I'll cancel my subscription with Disney. I don't want to call out those two platforms, but just as an example, there might be some give and take for those two items. And then you start with that. And over time, you start to see the impact. Do I really miss it? Maybe I didn't miss it. Or maybe it's okay to sacrifice something for 2 years to get us out of this situation so that we can then start enjoying some of those luxury items that aren't necessarily a need, but they're a want.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when it comes to checking our credit report and credit score, what are some benefits to doing that exercise?
Yeah, we all know that the better our credit score is, the easier it is to have the conversation to get a lower interest rates. Everybody's talking about interest rates right now because they've been all over the place the last couple of years. And if you are unfortunately one of the householders that had to remortgage, you were likely remortgaging at a higher interest rate than you had 5 years ago. Or if you have a variable interest rate, you're starting to see a little bit of a break right now on your interest rate. But if you want to remortgage, go check your credit score. Figure out how you can make that score even better, because maybe it's the difference between a 4.8 interest rate versus a 4.3 interest rate. Might not feel like a lot, but over a 25-year amortization, it's a lot of money. And you can do that calculation. There's lots of tools out there. The FCAC, Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, that we mentioned earlier, they have amazing resources and tools that we can go on and use. And it wasn't until I really started to get into the topic of financial literacy with my job did I realize how much amazing stuff is out there that is provided by the government. You can trust it. It's a tool that you can use to actually understand your money. And if you know your credit score, you can go with confidence back to your banker and say, hey, this is my credit score. Can you do something for me for my mortgage?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I always recommend to the people that come in to see me is at the very least, check your credit report once a year, not only so that you know what your score is, but also you just want to double check that there hasn't been any fraudulent activity, that the accounts are being reported accurately for you. So I always recommend that to my clients. And it is an easy process. You can go onto the websites for Equifax and TransUnion and request your credit report directly from the website. So I do recommend that people do that on a fairly regular basis. So I appreciate your input on that side of things. And so, of course, we're talking about money today as part of Financial Literacy Month, and we learn that there are solutions and an opportunity to move everyone forward financially. One of those things I think that's important is setting those financial goals. Carolyn, can you share why it's so important to have those goals and setting them in place?
I think goal setting is important because, like anything in life, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. Another important thing is to remember that they're just goals. They don't have to be set in stone. They can be markers that move. The important thing is to start to set them and then strive towards them. I had a LinkedIn post actually this week that I posted because it's Financial Literacy Month, and I like to post a few more posts about financial literacy. If we even just had a goal of saving $26.39 every day from now until next year, we would have $10,000 in our pocket. Imagine this time next year being $10,000 richer. We all can burn $26 a day and not even think about it. So when you break it down into those little small segments and do it daily, it makes a big impact over time, because time can be your friend when it comes to money.
Yes, that's true. In a number of different ways, I would agree. So you sort of touched there a little bit on SMART goals. You're setting a goal that has definitive timelines, a definitive strategy in order to meet those particular sort of expectations. And I like too that you said that it's a goal that can be a moving target. As long as you put it in place and strive towards it, I think that can be a benefit not only for individuals, but for families as well. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like even with your weight, right? We all want to lose weight, but it takes time, it takes effort, it takes education, it takes grit. Treat that just like with your money. Or maybe weight isn't a problem, but there's like, you want to educate yourself. Set a goal to go and learn, take a couple more courses, learn a little bit about money, start reading newspapers, Morningstar, Money Sense magazine, start subscribing to things. It's a drip, kind of like a drip campaign activity that can go in your brain. And over time, you're going to be like, oh, I could actually do that. Or is it better for me to save in my RESP when I'm only 25 and making $50,000 a year? Or should I be putting a little bit of money in my TFSA and wait to build up room in my RESP when I'm in a higher income bracket. What does that even mean? And maybe listeners who are listening today might not even understand what is the impact? What is the tax implication? And that's where you can go and talk to people, look things up, Google it. Google's your friend. You don't even have to pay for this advice, but just be careful where you're getting your advice and research a little bit about that.
Well, that's a perfect segue into sort of giving the benefits about talking and meeting with a financial professional, whether you're looking at trying to manage your investments, what types of investments are out there, what do they do for you, what are the tax implications? Absolutely. On the other side of things, maybe you're facing with some unmanageable debt and you maybe want to talk to a licensed insolvency trustee, look about your options on dealing with that side of things. So absolutely seeking out that professional, I think, is really important. And like you say, there is lots of resources to turn to, especially online. Can you give us a few examples of some resources maybe we can look up for some financial literacy?
You know what? If you just research or Google financial literacy education Canadian, that's a great start. For sure, at CPA Canada, as I mentioned, we have our own set of resources. We do a podcast on mastering money, which you can listen to on wherever you listen to your podcasts. Really great advice. Every episode every season has like a group of episodes that cover a topic. We also have our financial literacy sessions that are national program for volunteers, CPAs that go across the country and do financial literacy in schools and libraries and newcomer agencies. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada has all of the different tools, and from there it links out to other organizations. And even if you just look at the Ontario Securities Commissions, if you're here in Ontario and you're listening to this program, they have Get Smart with Your Money. There's lots of education to learn about all those different topics. And so I think there is a lot there. It's just being able to sift through what is not fake, what's real, and what is backed by an organization that has some kind of regulatory responsibility.
And it segues too a little bit into we talked earlier about those financial influencers and how much sort of impact they can have. And I think it's important that our viewers know that if you are following someone online, it's important that you do their research about that person. Do they have the right qualifications to be able to be giving the advice, especially the financial advice that they're giving online? So it's important to do that kind of research as well. Well, we've had a lot of great discussion, and I really appreciate everything that you've gone through today, Carolyn. I just want to remind our viewers that if you are looking to grow your financial knowledge, talk about it. Talk about it with your spouses, your family, your friends, with financial professionals. Just having the conversation will help to give you that confidence that can lead you to make some really great decisions about your finances, and you'll find that you will have some positive outcomes. And even though it is Financial Literacy Month, I encourage everyone to do these types of exercises on a regular basis, not only just in November. And so, Carolyn, we're just down to our last minute here. If anyone wants to connect with you, learn more about CPA Canada, how can they do that?
Yeah, navigate to cpacanada.ca/financial literacy. It will take you to our webpage with all of our resources. And my final thought too with you is money on your mind. Let's talk about it. Talk to your parents, talk to your mentors, talk to your friends, learn from one another, learn what you should or shouldn't do. And then when you're ready to invest, do your research. Don't make rash, quick decisions. We know how hard it is to save your money. Let's keep it, let's grow it, and always carry a healthy sense of skepticism with everything, especially around money.
Carolyn, thank you so much for your advice and being with us again today. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Shannon Jackson.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
It's closing time, and you stayed out longer than you planned. So now you can't drive, and the buses have stopped running. You could always call your girlfriend. Or maybe your roommate? What about your best friend? You could just dial 1-888 Taxi Guy or use the Taxi Guy app. The call and the app are free, and they both connect you to a local cab company to bring